Okay, we're live, Pat.
Hey, how you doing, Rick?
Started about 15 minutes later. You had a meeting with the vice president today, right? Pence, he was in town?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey.
Welcome to our viewers.
Yes, our millions and millions of viewers. And we should let everybody know that we actually got to have breakfast last week with one of our YouTube viewers, Steve, from the Bakersfield area. That was fun.
Yeah, great guy.
I got to turn the volume up here a second here. So he had an interesting job. He's a munitions guy with the Navy, and he said they blow things up. So I said, I want the job to push the button. And he said, that's my job.
So, I know. Great guy.
Yeah, a lot of fun. So, hey, if anybody else out there wants to have breakfast or coffee with us, let us know. We'd be glad to meet you. It was fun. I like where he said, Rick, I feel like you should be sitting over there and Pat over here. Because he's used to seeing us on YouTube like this. So I don't know how to switch us. I think well, that's
better.
That's better. Yeah. Okay, we can leave it at that. So unless you want to zoom in.
I was looking too fat. I look too fat on the other one. There you go. All right.
There we go. Okay. Well, hey, let's get rocking and rolling. Welcome to our millions and millions of viewers. And as we always like to say, this is why we do it after 3 o'clock, because we suck up so much bandwidth at YouTube that we don't want to interfere with the kiddos learning at home now. We crash the whole system. Yep. So, I read something on Mortgage Business Weekly or Mortgage Business Daily, basically saying everything's the same. The bonds, they keep waiting for a breakout and everything's just staying the same. And that's exactly what I'm seeing in the sales in Arizona. I keep waiting for a number to break out. And every week it's like, how can that be the same? Is it not being updated? But it's just the same. We're at 8,430 today on Friday. We go from 8,200 to 8,400 homes every Friday that are available. I'm seeing a little bit of neighborhood by neighborhood differences as it kind of ebbs and flows. You know how I always track down in Ocotillo? Little area down there. And last year at this time, I think we had 58 homes for sale. And I don't count the new construction, like brand new townhomes or new builds, right? Just talking resale homes. Last year, 58. Today, 13. I mean, amazing. 13. That really tells you what's going on. I mean, people are just saying, I'm not putting my house on the market. They're staying put. And the reasons that they're staying put vary by city and by state, and this is going on everywhere. There's no inventory. I'm also looking a little more closely at offers that are contingent, buying a house contingent upon the sale of your other house, to see if that number starts changing and going up. That tells you that maybe sellers are having a little harder time, so they're willing to accept a contingency offer. But right now they're not. That number is real small. It's like 175 a week out of 4,300. So
I just had an offer come in. Just a side note. I had an offer. A guy that has been looking for since last September. Just was getting frustrated. Him and his wife and newborn. And I mentioned about last week. They went from around the high 300s. They moved up their purchase price up to the mid 400s. And they found a house that was listed for $450. They put in, there was like 8 to 10 plus offers on the house. They put in an offer for $30,000 over, and they waived the appraisal. And they actually got the offer. I guess there was a few higher offers, but the realtor wrote a strong letter, saying what kind of situation he was in, and the seller was actually sympathized with him and took his offer because he had gone through the same thing as far as getting pushed out on all these offers. But he waived the appraisal, and he put a bid in. It was listed for $450. He put a bid in for $480, and they got the house.
How'd the appraisal come out?
Haven't ordered yet. I just got the contract today.
Okay, because that'll be interesting to hear how that turns out. Because
I'll keep you posted on that.
I hate
I mean,
seeing people have to do that.
I know. He got to a point that he just got, they had the money, but they're obviously they were frustrated. But I mean, that just goes to show you what kind of market we're in. It's just like you said, we know that it's been crazy. I mean, obviously it's frothy, but things are still moving forward. I'm concerned, but unlike 2005, 2006, like we talked about, the underwriting guidelines are so much tougher now. So
Yeah, well, here's a question I have for you. The Fed came out, last week and said that they're going to push for full employment. In fact, they want employment to be like 3.5%, where we had already got it at like 4.5%. They're saying it's 8 now. I don't believe them. It's actually 15 still in the state of California. But so, and then people are saying, well, we're going to have inflation. So, I mean, what is the Fed going to do differently now? Because we've been doing quantitative easing since 2008. So the only tool they have in their toolbox is to do more of it, right? And is more in quantitative easing. So we can let everybody know what it is. I mean, they're just buying, they're not printing money. They're going to banks and they're buying their bonds, their mortgage-backed securities, and their treasuries, and replacing them with
puts more money in the
collateral, right?
Yep.
So it's not really money that the banks can use, but it's money that the banks can loan against. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, the federal fund rate. They're going to keep the federal fund rate between 0.25. That doesn't have anything to do with the mortgage. The treasury market. It's obviously it's an overnight fund rate, but
the quantitative easing. I mean, what's the best way to explain what the Fed said they're going to do? I mean, they
provide liquidity. Just provide liquidity.
So they're going to provide more liquidity. So does that mean that the restrictions that the banks are under may ease up? Because I'm not seeing there's a disconnect to me between the federal government saying we're going to flood the market with liquidity and really get this economy on fire. And I'm sitting back going, how? Because banks are tightening up. We're already looking at mortgages that are 2.8, and as we've discussed and as you said, they don't really want to lend out money at 2.5 unless we get to negative rates, and then maybe they have a spread that they can work with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So maybe if things get down to negative rates, now the lenders say, okay, I'll loan you money at 1.99.
Yeah. They can do the liquidity thing, but there's only so much liquidity that they keep pumping into the market, and eventually that liquidity they're going to have to reverse it down the road. They said they're going to keep rates down. They want to keep rates low till like 2023. So,
well, I'm following this one guy named Steve Van Etter, I think it is. I'm probably saying it wrong, but he said the danger that they have now, and he thinks it's immediate danger, is that while the Fed is buying all of these bonds and all of these securities and mortgage-backed securities and giving the banks collateral, well, when a bank loans out based on that collateral, the risk is still with the bank. So if the loans aren't good, it still falls back on the bank. It doesn't fall back on the Fed. And so they're tightening up even more and more as this is happening. He's afraid the whole system's is gonna seize. And it could seize quick. So I think our watch out for real estate is not that it's local. Oh, Arizona's better than California. Idaho is better than, Denver. If the credit market seizes up, we're all in deep doo-doo.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been March. It didn't, because they came in with quite a boatload of money, to throw into the system, the banking system. But that money is just kind of rotating in the system,
Barely.
One bank. So,
but it's barely. When you look at loan growth, and I shared that graph a few weeks ago, actual lending growth, especially mortgage lending growth. I mean, we're hearing there's a lot of mortgages stuff going on, but actual mortgage lending growth is is like a straight line that's muddling along, and interest rates have gone down, that line should be going up because we're a debt-based society. So in order for our economy to roar like the Feds want it to, loan growth has to go up. So you've got industrial loans that are going down. Nobody's going to loan to them. Multifamily housing, nobody wants to loan to anybody that's going to build an apartment now. And
well, I think the loan growth has been the banks right now. Things have been so good for the banks. I mean, there was a one gentleman that was talking about how, I mean, you're right from the fact that it hasn't grown from the lower end side credit. I mean, if you got great credit, it's been growing. I mean, banks now can, they can kind of say, they're so busy that they can say, hey, we don't want anything under 660 credit score, 640. They can write higher. They've got so much capacity. They got so many loans coming in that they can be picky on the lower end. So that's, that's kind of probably where it's tightening too, is they're giving money out, but it's for the 740, 750, 760 credit scores. It's tightening on the lower end, because banks are so busy. But when banks slowed down, they made a point that when banks slow down, let's just take for example, say there's 100 loans, just keep things simple, 100 loans. And, out of those 100 loans, 90 of those had great credit scores. The other 10%, the banks aren't going to be willing to, we really don't want to mess around with those, because they're so busy. But now when they slow down, they made the point that when we get past this, this frenzy that we've seen in the last 6 months, when banks do slow down, they're going to start looking for the credit will probably open up because they want more loans. They're going to take that 620, 620 FICO score because they don't have as many loans in the pipeline.
So that goes back to my earlier theory in that QE, I mean, the Feds want more lending to happen across the board. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to front load our financial activity in aggregate. And what they're trying to do is, if you were going to buy a house next year, they want you to buy a house this year. If you were going to buy a car next year, they want you to buy a house this year, because that's what's going to get us out of the bad numbers in the economy. But how do you incentivize, give incentives for that? Because you've got really high unemployment. So it's going to be one of those scenarios where well, here we go again. The people that have the money make money. And those of us that are struggling down on the lower tier aren't going to be able to take advantage of whatever incentives that the Fed puts out. So you're going to see this huge growth in equities. The stock market will continue to go up and up, despite the fact that the numbers and the earnings in the stock market are not there. It's just that the liquidity's out there, and the Fed is not buying stocks, but it is buying some stock securities like Apple. There's some weird stuff going on. And Chairman Powell even said last week, he's not worried about asset bubbles. Does that mean he doesn't care if there's an asset bubble, or is he not worried that we're going to have any asset bubbles? Nobody knows.
I don't know. I'd be just guessing if I told you either way. I mean, I'm seeing a frenzy, but things just seem like things, it's just a weird time, because, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a lot of good loans being written, good credit scores, and, people putting money down. But, there just seems like there's something in the offing down the road, like we keep talking about. And I don't know.
Yeah, housing's going to take time to change. The unemployment numbers that we're seeing and the business closures and stuff are going to take time to seep into the system. So you've got two waves coming. You've got the unemployment wave that's making its way down, and it's going to cause some damage, along with the Fed saying that it's going to do everything it can to get the economy going, and maybe they meet happily in the middle. But the challenge is the Fed has never caused inflation since we got away from the gold standard. So now they're saying they want to see inflation that's consistently above 2% on average. Two and a half.
About being over 2%, they're going to let it run.
Yeah, and they haven't done it yet. That's been their target for 10 years.
Yeah,
They haven't done it yet. Another analogy I saw was your fire department. Okay, if my house is on fire, I'm calling the fire department to put it out. If I want to start a fire, I don't call the fire department. Their job's to put it out. So the Fed, their job is to control inflation. And now they're switching and going, inflation be damned, we want good market activity. And I'm looking and going, great, it's going to be really interesting to see how you do this. It's going to be, they've never done it before. So they're going to have to do different things that you and I don't see that are visible. And some of the things I saw that are visible this week was the builder confidence that was out there in the past 2 weeks, the permits to build, and excuse me, builders are always 2 years out. They dropped by 20%.
Yeah.
Why did they drop by 20%?
Well, lumber, obviously, lumber prices.
And maybe lumber availability.
Yeah. I mean, that's been huge with the fires and everything.
Yeah. Well, you couldn't cut any of those trees down anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting to watch. I think I looked, one number that I saw that I thought was starting to tweak down a little bit was homes under contract, was meeting new listings every week. So that number was remaining about consistent. So if I look at, let's see if I can pull it up on my sheet here. Pull it over. So I've been tracking. So like November 14th, that week, we had 4,064 new listings come on board and only 3,900 go under contract. And that was really kind of the first time that we saw numbers that were lower than the actual homes that came on the market. Well, that was it. That was just an anomaly. Now we're at 4435 and 4283. So we're within 100 units of that number of homes that come on the market. So it's not enough to call it a significant number, a trend, or a change yet. Kind of like the bond market, we're waiting for that breakout point. And is the breakout point going to be that buyer activity dips severely or that inventory comes up? And it's interesting to look at Ocotillo just in its own little micro market that says, man, they went from 58 listings to 13. So I went down further south and I looked at Sun Lakes, Arizona, which is a 55 and older community. And they have almost the same amount of listings this year at this time in September as they did last year. They have 68 listings. Last year they had 75. So they've got their own little world down there. But there's only a certain price range that's moving. So we had 4 new listings come up this week and 2 new contracts. But for the month, it was really slow. But if you are 330,000 or below down there with a 2-bedroom that's been, remodeled, it goes quick. But there's 15 homes under 300,000 in Sun Lakes, of which over half of them are modular units. So that price range, if you want to buy something between 290 and 350, like Jill's place, that's where all the battle's taking part. Yeah. Once you break out of 350, Sun Lakes is very slow in sales.
It's an interesting dynamic.
What's that?
Interesting dynamic. It's its own little world.
No, a lady down there, she put her home. She didn't like where she had it. It was up against Rig Road. Thought it was too noisy. So she just went down the street a few blocks and put a contingency offer on a house for the asking price. Got it accepted. And now she's going to put her house on the market. And again, there's a contingency offer that you wouldn't think that anybody would take, but she goes, I'll take it. So,
hey, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised what people take on this market. Like you said, that the guy that put that offer on, I just mentioned, he was going up against. He didn't get the highest. They didn't accept the highest bid. They basically looked at his letter, what his situation was like, and they. I was told by the agent that they did not accept the highest bid. They saw he was putting a substantial down payment down. And he was qualified, and they ran with it.
Well, I have a condo and we lowered the price, but I got an offer that came in 23,000 below what we were asking. And we're only asking 243 right now. And so they sent me something for 20, 220.
Yeah.
And I said, no, we're not going to accept that. And so she called me yesterday again, and she says, are your clients willing to come down? And I said, you haven't found anything for your buyer yet? And she goes, well, there was one that we wanted to see, but it already went under contract. She goes, but you guys are still way overpriced. I said, yet you still keep calling me.
Yeah.
I said, there's only 9 condos below the asking price of 250 within 1 mile of ours. And only 3 of them, and only 3 of them are 2 bedrooms like ours. None of them have high ceilings like ours. And I'm watching the ones below me getting picked off. I said, I don't think I'm going to be out there on this island. I think we'll have a buyer very soon. So I said, it sounds to me like your buyer needs to come up, not that we need to come down.
Yeah.
And she started getting very condescending and lecturing me. And I just kind of did my phone smile and I go, I've done this before. Like, it was kind of annoying, really, but I could be wrong. The market's telling me that we're a little overpriced, but she's trying to tell me that we're a lot overpriced. They probably should have priced it at around 239 instead of 243, because it's rare that you get somebody that offers you anything below your asking price.
Yeah.
So that's going to be an interesting one to watch. But
I think it's going to be interesting to see how these first-time home buyers, like this one first-time home buyer I mentioned, I mean, they're determined to get a house, but I think there's going to be first-time home buyers that pull back and just say, hey, we got to just let this settle down, because it's ridiculous the bids that are being put out there. And, lenders are backed up. I mean, agents are putting in bids for 30-day escrows when really the lenders, I've been seeing a lot of Facebook posts that lenders are, agents are getting frustrated with lenders because, I've heard this deal. I had a deal this last week. My processor was working till 2:30 in the morning, emailing people. That's how busy, people have been. And I had underwriter email me at 10:30 at night. So, it's just the lenders are just overwhelmed by the refis, but also it's putting pressure on the purchases, and the agents are trying to put in good bids and say, okay, we'll close in 30 days or less. And the lenders are taking probably 35, 40, 45 days,
So if you're going to put an offer on a house and you intend on occupying it in 30 days, you need to have a plan B. Because there's nothing worse than getting a call 5 days before closing saying, we're still waiting for underwriting to kick this file out, and the other people are packing. You're packed. You're ready to go. You're better off writing it for 40 days right now. I know everybody's in a hurry and they want to sell their house. They want to do it quick, but you're better, unless it's cash. You're better off doing 40 days, because 30 days, I think you're just signing up for pain.
Yeah, like you said, you have a contingent plan as far as, you got to make, if the house is empty and you don't have to move around, there's some situations you can maneuver around. But if you got a moving truck in front of the house the day of closing, you're putting yourself in a tough position.
Well, if you're selling your house and you're counting on these people moving in on the 30th, and you're going to be out the morning of the 30th or the night of the 29th, it may not close on the 30th. So if you're going to be packed up, then maybe have a plan B that says that, well, we might have to rent an Airbnb for, 10 days, or we might, might have to stay with a friend or family, but have those kinds of conversations. Say, what if, because it's probably not going to close on the 30th. And I think it's easier for sellers to go ahead and pack up and be ready to go out early than it is for buyers to not be able to. You can't have the movers show up and you have no place for the furniture to go. Now there are some movers that will store it for you, but all of this is so messy. If you just wait 10 days, it won't kill you. Make it a 40-day close. Everybody will breathe a lot easier.
Well, that's the problem, is agents are getting pressured by, they got 8 or 10 other offers in. The seller's trying to get their house sold quickly, and they're going to take the one that can close quicker than take the one that says 30 versus 45 days or 40. But just, it's just being realistic and setting expectations. Because you said,
sellers need to ask the question: who's financing?
In this frenzied market, what I'm seeing, just reading these Facebook posts from different mortgage related and real estate related Facebook posts, people are just getting frustrated because, like you said, the lenders are backed up. The average, underwriting time is 5 to 10 days, and they just need to get all their documents in right away and keep their fingers crossed and keep like you said, lenders are just backed up. They can't hire people enough, and that's the problem. We're not going to probably see this, alleviated for, and obviously now the refi market with the half a point, there's a rush to get done before December 1st too. So you got that thrown in there too.
Yeah, and I noticed some lenders are starting to build that refi penalty, as they nickname it, into some home purchase loans. Yeah. So it's it's only it's a 0.5%, but 0.5%'s a 0.5%. So, but even said, rates are so historically low, it's hard to worry about, a 0.5% fee. But there are, and I think people really need to be aware about how they can lose their earnest money too. So if you're a buyer and you've put a good faith deposit on a home, if you do things right, you can get your earnest money back. You've got your inspection period. And if you decide during that 10-day period you don't want the house for whatever reason, you'll get your money back. Well, then you have a financing contingency, which says I'm obligated to get a loan in good faith. Well, if you can't get that loan for whatever reason, you have to let the seller know 3 days before close of escrow. If you do, you're like, hey, I'm sorry, I can't get the loan. You'll get your earnest money back. If you don't let them know 3 days before that, now it falls on the selling agent to send your agent a cure letter that says, we never got notice about financing. You've got 3 days to cure that. Well, within that 3-day period, your agent can send a note that says, yeah, they didn't get financing. You'll get the earnest money. If you don't give them any notice at all, you lose your earnest money. The other way, I don't think people realize that you can lose that deposit. Let's say I came to you, Pat, and I say, you quote me a rate. You go, Rick, I can get you the house for 2.9. Great. You're the best, Pat. And then 3 days before closing, you call because you and I haven't talked for 2 weeks. I'm just ignoring you. And then you go, oh, your mortgage is 3.3. You didn't ask me to lock the rate in. And I go, well, screw it. I don't want the loan then. I lose my earnest money deposit. I have to live up to the terms of the agreement that says I have to make a good faith effort to get that loan, and not locking in the loan rate and then canceling at the last minute is not a good faith effort. So the earnest money goes to the seller. Now, I bet a lot of people didn't know that.
No, yeah, it's true.
Inside that contract are pages and pages of lines of terms and stuff. And so, because I've seen that. So I had a friend was going to buy a house in Washington State. While they were up there, they got some very bad health news for his mother-in-law in Texas. And he was going to come down here and put his house up for sale in Anthem. And I called and grabbed that. And he called and he goes, we've got some bad news. He goes, we can't be packing up our house and selling when we know we're going to be spending some time in Texas. How do I get out of this contract? I said, where are you in the inspection period? He said, we're all done. We signed off. But he was going through one of those loan companies where you get a hold of them online. And he was going to get an asset loan from his trust account. And they told him he could only get a loan through his 401k, payments from his 401k. And he said, I don't want to do my 401k. I want to do the trust account. He said, I do a 401k, I'm going to get taxed. I do a trust account, I won't. And they said, well, we don't think we can craft it that way. And I said, well, there's your out. Have them send a letter saying that they can't put the loan together for you. Yeah. So he got out of the contract. Good for him, not great for the seller. But he was only 9 days into it. But you can get out of the loan contingency. So apologize to everybody for my coughing. I don't know what Pat's problem is, but he's probably same as me, allergies, right?
Yeah, exactly. But no, other than that, it's been pretty steady in the market. The market's been, the bonds have been pretty steady. I mean, it's just been plugging along. We've been stuck in this range, the high twos, low threes, just depends what kind of loan, obviously credit score. But other than that, lenders are just busy. And I mean, I don't have anything else really to report from the lending side. It's just been same old,
Well,
same
I want
old.
to wait and see. I want to see next week if anything bubbles up that the Fed has plans on doing that nobody's anticipating.
Yeah.
In other words, just coming out and saying that you're going to ramp up QE, and they're already doing it at the tune of trillions of dollars, and we haven't seen inflation, and we haven't seen a big uptick. What's up their sleeves? So keep your ear to the ground on that and read that. And I know that Mortgage Business Daily does a really good job of looking at that, because the bond market's operating in this narrow range, and they're waiting for a breakup, which a breakup means rates go down, correct?
Yeah,
and,
correct.
And if bonds go down, then then rates will go up. But the Steven guy that I've been following, he calls himself the bond king. He's expecting a drop in rates. So we have to, because there's no lending growth. But there has to be some more actions by the Fed that we don't see. And one of the actions that's out there that they're talking about is the Fed can buy securities, and they can buy bonds, and they can hold it as collateral, and they can tell Congress that they've got to give more stimulus to you and I. But they can't write you and I a check they can't write checks to the Treasury for them to put out. But I'll bet they find a way that they can, because Congress is not doing it. Congress has not come to terms on small business relief and relief for people that are out of work. And the Fed sees what's coming if that doesn't change. They can't wait till November. I'll bet you'll see them get with Steve Mnuchin and say, here's what we propose, and here's what we're going to have to do in an emergency measure. We're going to give you $1 trillion. You have to get this out to the taxpayer. That's my guess, because we've got to get the economy moving.
There just seems like you and I have been talking the last couple months. It just seems like there's more lurking, bottom line.
There's some ugly stuff out there, and the Fed chairman said so. And the only thing that the Fed can do is to talk confidence into the market. The only way the stock market's going to stay high is if he gives them a reason to feel good about investing in the market. So he's not going to get up and say, well, here's how ugly it's going to get. He can get up and say, here's how ugly it could get. However, if we do this, this, and this, we should be fine. The problem is he's telling Congress, you guys have got to get this done, and they're not doing it. But you watch, he's going to find a workaround, and it's going to be unprecedented. So it's going to be interesting to watch. Either he's going to pull off a miracle, or everything falls like a house of cards. So there's always something to look at out there in the real estate and financing world. So,
things have been sitting so status quo the last couple. For the most part, it's been a frenzied market, but it's been sitting status quo like that for the last couple months. That we know that, like you said, it can't keep. The demand, something's going to break eventually. Like you said, I don't see it. I think I'd see it softening, but I don't see a crash because there's still a lot of demand out there. But if it's going the other way, then you don't know when the bottom is too either.
If we have a freeze in lending, we will see a crash.
Yeah.
So that's what Powell's trying to avoid. Hey, those of you watching, do me a favor, click that subscribe button and click that little bell icon down there, so you'll get notified as soon as we go live and as soon as we add new content. And let us know if you want to have breakfast or lunch sometime. We'd love to meet you. So, Pat, have a super weekend. I think I'm just kind of laying low. I haven't been going outside much. I developed allergies when I came to Arizona. Never had them before. Never. Maybe a little twitch in the eye or something, but something out there's been chewing me up all week, and I've been whining like a little schoolgirl. So I think I'm trying every medication known to man from my doctor. So I think I'm just going to take it easy this weekend.
Good. So, all right, buddy.
All right. Have a good one.
Yep. You too. Thanks much. Bye-bye.